Great. Welcome everyone. Today we have with us Ashris sir. Everyone knows him with the name of India in Pixels. No need of any introduction to sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Jay, so much. It makes me so happy to be here. And I don't think a lot of people know I am behind. So I do think I do need introduction, but thank you for the warm introduction.
Great, sir. Uh, I will ask my first question to you, sir. What was your early education like in academic education, and how did you end up at IIT KGP, Kharagpur?
Right. So I was always into my studies. I was a huge math and design nerd. So growing up, I was always, these were my two favorite subjects. Maths for reasons like it made me feel more logical, rational, and I enjoyed those kind of, logical questions. And art, because that is how I expressed myself. I was a single kid. So that is how I found my expression. And like most people in India, I had no clue what I wanted to do after 10th, 12th. So I just went along with whatever my parents wanted me to do, which is either be a doctor or like an engineer from an IIT. And I saw my mom as a doctor, she wakes up at 3 a.m. in the night, go and attend her doctors. And I knew like that lifestyle isn't for me. I don't think I can be like the most compassionate doctor out there. So it was like, let's go with engineering. And yeah, I basically attempted the IIT JEE. I didn't get a good rank. I mean, I kind of like messed up two questions. And so, in India, like you do not choose your field. It's almost like your rank and your college chooses you. So I couldn't get like a lot of these degrees, right? Like these good ones, computer science, electronics, whatever. And all I was left with was these degrees that didn't sound so cool, like textile engineering, ceramics engineering, pulp and paper. I just was like, fine, like if this is what I have to work with, let's just go with architecture. It sounds, I guess, interesting. And also partly because it was the oldest IIT Kharagpur. So that is what I did. And I'm not doing architecture right now, but I don't regret that decision at all. I think architecture was the most fun, education that I got. So that is how I ended up in Kharagpur. It wasn't like totally planned. It was a bit of luck and my bad performance in my JEE exams.
How was your preparation for those 2 years like for IIT JEE? What is it? What did it taught you?
I was in Andhra Pradesh. It's like if coaching ever had like a Mecca Medina, it's probably in like Andhra. The way Fiji, Narayana, Chaitanya sort of create the atmosphere. It's almost like you are in a 2-year long Olympic event.
Like
You're
it's IIT JEE or failure.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I mean, it's a whole event, like the whole state sort of comes together to prepare its kids for these exams, like there are these big jeeps that you see in the streets of Vizag. They will be like, Wakati, 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 Rendu, Rendu, Rendu. These are announcing like number 1 rank, number 2 rank, number 3 rank, all came from Chaitanya Narayana. So like they really focus on the exams quite a bit. I studied in Fiji, Vizag. So it's very competitive. The state essentially sort of awards you marks very liberally in their state board exams so that like all people can focus on their exams. So it was very hectic. I don't think I did anything else other than like studying in my exams. And I knew like I'll get in, but the whole game was like, should I go for computer science? Should I go for this? But yeah, I just messed up my exams, and I didn't get like such a good rank, but yeah, I think that was the best mistake of my life.
Then what happened after that? Like once you went in IIT KGP with those
Yeah,
lower branches,
I just felt I made it. Like, it's like everything that as you dream as a student, you kind of imagine like all these scenarios. I'll go to an IIT, I'll suddenly like feel myself. And it was more about like all the social cred that I got, like all my relatives sort of being like, oh, now you're going to an IIT. And, I was enjoying that kind of like royalty. Like it was the closest to a celebrity that I feel. I don't think I'll be able to do anything in my life that'll match like what how much hype it was at that point of my life. So I was very happy, but all that like suddenly went down after my first month at IIT, I realized like, oh wow, it's pretty normal. Like, nothing really happens once you get in. It's just like it's normal, life resumes. The euphoria ends very soon. But that's like a running theme in my life. The same when I went to MIT, it was kind of a feeling like that. Oh, I made it. But there are no drums, there's no music, life goes on. And you sort of move in and you realize this is what life is. You make a dream, you achieve it, and they're like, oh, I achieved it. And then, okay, what do I do next? It's been a constant theme of that in my life.
Got got it. What did you learn on that 4 years that stayed with you?
5 years actually. So
Okay, so it was a BTech plus MTech.
I failed a year. No, it was.
Okay.
No, I did not. I did not. I'm just kidding. It's a bachelor's with 5 degrees. It's like the only bachelor's degree in India, which is that long, because it has a different council of architecture. So it works slightly differently
Okay.
from all other, degrees. Like even degree is called B Arch, not B. And
Okay.
it was kind of like a stigmatized course in college, because everyone was coding, was doing mechanics, was making robots, and we used to cut thermocol and paint statues and make clay things. And it was kind of like you would feel like, am I not as smart as these other people? Because that is how people would treat you also. Oh, tum arki walo ko to maza hai. You like keep having fun, you play with like all these colors. And that was not the experience. I knew like I was a very smart kid. And I think there was a bit of like, I have to prove these people, like I can do whatever I feel like. So it was a bit of like this inferiority complex, like people are judging me because of my department. And so I just decided, you know what, I'll learn to code and I'll show these guys that I'm better at so it came from that place. It also came from a place that I have to do like all these foreign internships. Because once in IIT, like these sort of grades, like there are these new metrics of how do you define if you're doing well. And one of them is like if you do a foreign internship. So in my third year, I did like an internship at ETH Zurich in Switzerland. And sort of that was great because like,
What was it about?
we were applying machine learning to create sort of architectural floor plans automatically.
Got it.
That was one project. And the other one was we were generating an emotional landscape of Zurich. So essentially having an elaborate setup of sensors and stuff and making people roam around and track how do they feel in different parts of the city. So this area sort of makes people feel safe, or this area people feel more anxious, and then that city government could take that study into account and then plan where do they need to redesign. And that was amazing because I realized like architecture is so much more than just like vastu shastra or like यहाँ से building बना दो वहां से कर दो. It can be so much more than what I assumed it to be, and it was this interesting mixture of technology and design that I fell in love with. That coding need not always be about like making an application. It is a tool that lets you do anything. Like for example, you are a 10-year-old kid and you haven't studied computer science, and yet here you are building Shodh, right? And I find that to be most fascinating aspect about technology. Like you can apply it everywhere. And ever since then, I think that internship made me realize like this is the field that I have to be in. This is something I enjoy. This is something I'm good at. And so like this coding plus design, and this also matched with something I was always interested in as a kid, maths and design. So I realized like this is what I want to do.
Like what was your initial starting like when you started learning coding? Like for me, it taught me a lot about how to think and logically. Like for example, like coding taught me how to like break down my thoughts into just loops and then these classes and etc. etc. It helped me more structurize my thoughts. How did you help? How did it help with coding when you started learning it initially?
I think for 2 years, I was just like faking it till you make it. It was very much just copy paste things from Stack Overflow, just just expected to. I didn't even know what was happening. I didn't know like JavaScript has so many these complex concepts like asynchronous programming, callback, loops, promises, and I was like, I don't get any of this, but just like pasting a bunch of copied things and just making it work, because the main intention wasn't to learn coding.
It was to show off to other people, right?
It was to build things with it. It was to build So like the analogy I give is I want to use the hammer. I don't want to build a hammer. And so I think all the logical part or like seeing how does this happen came way later. And that is what I tell people when they say like, hey, how can I learn coding? I just say like, try to build something and build it, and don't do it the right way, do it in the most hacky jugaad way. And it worked for me. So now I'm a software engineer, so I guess it paid off, you know. But the point is like the initial path doesn't look so pretty all the time. Sometimes like when you get in this mindset of like, oh, I'll watch tutorials, and then you keep watching these videos and never build something on your own. I would rather be of the opinion, just throw yourself in a,
Explore.
yeah, and just like do it on your own. I think that's the best way to learn.
Like I also learned by that only. Like, I picked up a project and then I
Hmm.
didn't watch those tutorials like until an error came. Like for example, I just ran into the IDs and started coding. And then when those error popped up, I watched those tutorial to learn about the error, how to solve it, and then solved it and again back to my coding job.
Exactly. I think that is how humans were supposed to learn. When a kid starts to learn a language, he does not sit down and study
Correct.
grammar
Correct.
books.
He just listens to his parents talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you really enjoy things when you learn it that way. One reason college destroys the fun of a lot of subject is because it hyper orders the learning process. It makes it seem like this rigorous, I don't know, endless work, which it isn't. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. Then my next question is, how did you end up at MIT? And what did you do at MIT those 2 years?
Yeah. So I was a visiting scholar at MIT. I didn't
Okay.
like get a degree there.
Okay.
After my college, everyone was sitting for placements,
Uh-huh.
and I realized everyone like really considered placements to be a big deal, but there was
Uh-huh.
something in me that made me seem I will do a job, the creative Ashrish. I just couldn't like digest it almost. And I was feeling very anxious, almost like an existential feeling like, is this how it is? Like I go to a job every single day. What about the ideas? What about like this goal to do something for the country and things like that? And so I was not in a very good place. And that is when I think I always knew about the MIT Media Lab. It seemed
Uh-huh.
to be like the only kind of place where I will fit in.
What
I'll
is
tell you.
MIT Media Lab?
So it's basically a department of MIT where it's about interdisciplinary collaboration.
Okay.
They will put a musician with a skin scientist, and
Uh-huh.
they will work on creating like a project from your brain neurons.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically the most
Mm-hmm.
interdisciplinary projects which need not have like a direct application.
Got it.
It's mostly like artistic, precise. It's check it out. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. So they have different fields, and each field has a professor, and they have students under them. And this field is not some like an established field. It's from the interests of the professor. So the professor I was working with was Patty Mace in the fluid interfaces lab.
Uh-huh.
And fluid interfaces, it sounds like something with like fluid and no, but it was very metaphorical. What it meant was, how do we blur the gap between machines and humans?
Got it.
And it involved a lot of wearables. It involved a lot of cognitive augmentation.
Uh-huh.
At that time HoloLens had been out, and we were making AR apps for kids to learn maths and physics in an immersive environment. So that is what I worked on. I also worked with Arnav Kapoor. He was also at the same lab, and we were essentially devising a machine which can tell what you're thinking of. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's so whenever you think, you have a unique fingerprint all over your body through, because your thought has a particular sensory fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
And using these machines, you can sort of train the machine to see like, oh, when you think of this is how your body responds, like your galvanic skin response, electrodermal activity, all that. So the prototype that Arnav was working on was able to essentially, in a very low prototype environment, predict what someone is thinking of after rigorous machine
Wow.
learning. And it was really fascinating. But at that time, I think I had like a mini Swadesh like feeling, like, what am I exactly doing? Is this something that I see myself doing? Is this what, you know, feels right. And I sort of was disillusioned by MIT, just because like the problems that they were solving were so futuristic that I just couldn't empathize with it. And I felt like my real purpose in life is to do something right now. Like, I don't want to impress a bunch of professors. I want to impress people out there who, who I resonate with. And I think with that, I decided not to apply for any masters or anything, come back to
Uh-huh.
India, go through the whole startup cycle, because I wanted to refine my skills. I wanted to be a very good programmer, because I realized like it was becoming a blocker for me to do complex projects because I didn't have the skill sets. So I realized this is what I want to be good at. But MIT really provided like the playground,
Environment.
yeah, the environment for me to think about different things. I was sharing my flat with a Nepali person. There was a Hindu Pakistani girl who was dating another Odia guy. And I was talking to all these people. There was an Israeli person. I met a Palestinian person for the first time. It really helped you see the world from a different perspective. Like stepping out of India, you can really see where in the world are we. And I saw like there, even at that point, like 2017, I saw a lot of interest in India. Like there was this one course in Harvard, and I think they had Flipkart as the case study.
Uh-huh.
Like how did it succeed and how did it grow? And I saw like
Uh-huh.
there was interest coming back to India. So I thought like something really is interesting is happening, and I should like go back and focus. And that is what I did.
When you came back, did you work as a programmer on some startups?
I joined the Hindustan Times actually as a data
Okay.
journalist.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, interesting program that was launched by Gurman Bhatia and
Uh-huh.
Harry Stevens at that point. It was something like a data journalism fellow
Uh-huh.
where you had to program and you had to build data visualizations. It was a really new field for me, but I thought like, hey, it sounds interesting. Something to do with like data, code, and India, like three of the things that I'm passionate about. So I jumped on the gun, but that was the first time I went out of my house. I mean, I had gone to Boston, but in some ways, like Delhi is more foreign to me than Boston was, because Delhi, mein, I had to live on my own. I was living in like a refugee colony of sorts. And yeah, in 1 month, I got dengue and maybe it was typhoid, something. And as soon as I left, some robbers broke into my room. They stole my laptop, which had all the work from MIT. And so it was a really bad experience. And so I just decided like I'm not tough enough for Delhi. So I left that and I joined like a startup called Shipsy in Gurgaon. But yeah, so that was what I did first in Hindustan Times. And then I realized like this journalism thing isn't for me. I'll probably be happy with the startup people, the software people.
But that inspired you to pursue data visualization later, right?
Oh, for sure. I think at that point, I realized, you know what? This is such a cool field. You take a bunch of numbers and you make it into something visual, and suddenly something that would be intimidating for people to go through, like a lot of the numbers, suddenly looks pretty. And I enjoyed that process. And that was my discovery with data visualization. And I realized, like, hey, not a lot of people in India are doing this thing. So maybe, like, I could, like, maybe I could be something in this field. But yeah, Indian Pixels didn't happen there immediately. I think it happened
Okay.
years later, where it was still marinating in my mind. But I did a lot of interesting projects back then. For example, one of the projects I did was to visualize all of my Facebook friends in
Uh-huh.
a graph. And it was like a physics simulation where, like, if you are friends with another friend, you would have like a force of attraction. And then it was sort of like an auto clustering of my
Yeah, yeah,
Facebook
yeah,
network.
yeah, yeah.
And it was really interesting. So I was enjoying doing all these projects, and I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't exactly know in what form will this be.
And
Yeah.
then when did Indian Pixels born?
So I think 2 years I was just doing all these side projects. There was
Got it.
section 377 was removed, and I did like a Twitter visualization of like
Yeah,
which
yeah, yeah. I saw that.
what. And I think it was late 2018, early 2019. There was these videos that became very popular
Yeah,
all
those bar chart videos.
those bar chart videos. And I saw one and I watched it for like 6 minutes straight. I think it was something like companies in the United States, Apple going up, the Microsoft coming
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
I realized, what am I doing? I'm watching a bar chart animation video. How is this so interesting? Because at that point I thought data visualizations are all static,
Yeah.
and suddenly had like an element of motion to it, and that was really new. And it was not just me, like people were watching this stuff, like a lot of people were doing it. I realized like nothing like this is happening in the context of India. I would like to know which state was number one in 1960 and
Yeah.
which state is number one now. And so I took that as a hackathon challenge for myself. And there was this office party happening once. Everyone was drunk around me, and I was kind of off it, like the music was horrible. So I basically plugged in my earphones. I decided, let me copy that, let me try to build that for India. And I tried to make a very shitty version. They were all one colored, and I struggled. I got frustrated. It wasn't happening. The animation wasn't smooth. And then I think middle of the night at 4 a.m., I just woke up, and I don't know what I got, but I worked on it 1 hour nonstop, and there was it. It was a
Oh.
properly functional bar chart video. And then I was like, this is interesting. I added some colors, did a screen recording, and I uploaded on YouTube. And at that point, I had to name this channel. I wanted Bar Charts India, something, something. I think let's keep it something poetic. So it was just India and Pixels was off on my mind. I gave it like 0 minutes of thought. I just put in a name, created a channel, forgot about it. And then I think I visited 1 month later, and I saw it had 1,000 views. And I was like, 1,000 people watched it? Are you kidding me? And like, I was really happy. And so I decided I should do more of that. And just that time, I guess IPL was there, World Cup was also happening, and I decided to make a cricket video. And boy, oh boy, I think that was a jackpot that I stumbled upon. Because as soon as I released the first cricket video, like in 2 days, I think it got 100K video view.
Wow.
And I realized like, wow, this is like something is up. And that is when I think Indian Pixels took shape. A very
Wow.
fluke, random chance, but very lucky nevertheless.
What do you think happened at the 4 a.m.? Like you suddenly woke up and wrote the code that was missing.
That's such a good question. I actually don't know still, but I do feel like there are these waves. I don't know what does it happen. Maybe on a more spiritual level, I think thoughts are always there around you. You sometimes have to be tuned to be the vessel that can accommodate that idea. And I think at that 4 a.m. sort of, that whole time, 3 a.m., 2 a.m., I love that time because everyone is sleeping. You don't have like this subconscious guards up that someone might call right now and I have to reply. And you can truly be yourself, and you can be immersed in this sort of Zen mode, mode where you can think about things deeply. I think there was this book, right? Deep Work. It was something like that. Because I was so immersed in that idea and nothing else mattered at that point. I was not Ashrish. It didn't matter like whether I had to go home, what will happen. It was just that idea that was there. And when you see something that clearly, problems get resolved automatically. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like the problem, when you're totally ready, the problem solves itself for you. And maybe I'm speaking a lot of pseudoscience, but I feel that again and again. Sometimes the idea is just waiting for you, and you don't have to fight too much to reach to that idea. You just have to learn to sit in one place and continue sitting even if you're not getting that idea. And I think at 4 a.m. it just paid off. Like that idea that I was waiting for, it just hit me.
Got got it. My next question is, what are the fine aspects of data visualization that you learned in the whole content creation journey for 2 years in India and Pixels?
Yeah.
Stayed with you.
So I didn't really have a plan of like what is data visualization. Like
Yeah.
I told you, like I never studied it formally.
Correct.
I know like there are a lot of like theory to it, and data viz happens rigorously in the data science world, where it is treated more with like coding. There are these models, they do like these kind of analysis. I know none of that. Like I do not know how to make Tableau visualizations. I totally approach it from a storytelling approach. Like I treat data visualization as comic making. How do you take some numbers and sort of tell a story? I don't know about the statistical methods. So my approach to data visualization is very informal. How do we create stories that are not from someone's opinion, but are from hard reality?
Hmm.
How, so that's the approach that I take. And in that process, I think I have experimented quite a bit. Initially, I was going on with these bar chart videos, but then I realized, it works for certain cases and it does not work for certain
Hmm.
cases. So it works for cases where like there are sports involved, where like people come, they sort of have like a natural face and they go off. It wouldn't work in the case of, let's say, literacy rate. I did make videos, but it was kind of a boring thing because things would just go and they would be stuck. So I
Yes.
realized you cannot put everything in one
Hmm.
model. You sort of have to know that what is the underlying message in the data visualization and tell stories accordingly. So that is when I think around the time I was just bored with this one model. So I shifted to map making,
Huh?
and I did maps for a while. Then I shifted to these more um, experimental sort of visualizations. At one point, I was just like, following these threads on Reddit. Data is beautiful. See something that was made in the context of the USA, and I was like, let's make an Indian version of it. It was as simple as that. And I do not value originality highly at all. I
Yeah.
am totally of the proponent that every idea is derived.
Correct.
You should copy things, but you should be smart about it. You should copy from multiple different things and create something of your own.
Yeah.
And that is what I do. I just take random ideas and try to make their own version. So ever since then, I made maps, I made static visualizations, I was these network visualizations I did. But none of this was like, I'll plan it. It was very
Hmm.
much like, what is this shape that this data story wants to take? And it was kind of just making that.
Yeah, I think Steve Jobs said it right. The best people steal the ideas. They don't copy, they steal it. Correct.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like that's the smart move, right? Because no one pays or values original ideas. Like no one cares about original ideas other than you, who probably are proud of it because it's your idea.
Hmm.
That isn't you. For something to work, you really need to see what is the world ready for.
Hmm.
And that is the smarter way, rather than just like pushing something out there just because it's your idea. And I think I learned it in the process as well. Sometimes I would just make some visualizations because it would make me look smarter. uh, and it didn't work at all because people didn't connect with it. And that is when I tried to think from an empathetic perspective, like what is someone who was scrolling their phone in the mindset of, they want simpler graphics, they want less of text, more of visuals, and a clear message. What exactly is it? So in the process, I refined it. I reduced my own ego, where like I wanted to appear smart, and focused more on how can my viewer have the best experience. And I think that mindset shift really helped me become a better creator.
Like customer centered,
Yeah.
centricity.
um, it's less about you and it's more about your viewers and audience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Another thing, like PM Modi just applauded you for your UPI data sonification, right? What was that feeling like?
Man, someone pinched me. I still don't believe it. It hasn't soaked in. Like I think I didn't process it for the initial 4 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
It did. I was literally jumping, Jay. I was literally like jumping. It
yeah,
wasn't because like someone like him shared it. I'm probably sure like it's some secretary in the
yeah,
PMO.
yeah,
Probably they might have seen it.
yeah. His team.
Uh, but it was really like a validation that what I'm kind of doing has
Yeah.
meaning. It's not like I'm doing things in the thin air. But sometimes, as creators, people feel that like, am I pushing a rock which is not going to move anywhere?
Yeah.
And sometimes I do feel like that, maybe like things come and go. I'm making some interesting stuff. It won't be relevant in some years. But
Hmm.
for like the Prime Minister of India to think that it is worthy of, sharing, and specifically mentioning like, they liked data sonification like a new thing, it and on that scale, like just imagine so many people got to be aware of something like data sonification. I think it was really exciting, and I was happy for the field in general. Like fields like this, which were so niche at one point, are now household topics, and that I was so happy about. Like um, so I feel really, really pumped up right now. Really excited to make stuff that people still enjoy, and continue doing the work that I'm doing. I feel super blessed and humbled.
What are the future projects you're working on currently for Indian Pixels?
The future projects, I am of the opinion, like I think the moment you verbalize something, it loses
Uh-huh.
its power. So I wouldn't
Okay.
go into too much of
Uh-huh.
things, because I think it's in a baby shape, and I
Uh-huh.
want to give it like that protection that it wants. Not to say like I'm working on anything secretive. It will
Yeah.
evolve naturally. But I think I'm not so um restless to do something new for the sake of new.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think there's a natural timeline where your body or your mind knows that you probably have done the best that you could do in this field, so you have to change. But if I have to just give a commentary from what I'm doing, I think I'm shifting more towards like data sonification.
Uh-huh.
uh, uh, Maybe it's one of the form, but like more long form contents where data isn't just like you visualize it, but you make it like an experience, like
Mm.
it's more art. So I
Mm.
want to make it more artistic, because it feels more meaningful. Because after a while, how much how many times can I just go like Jharkhand has 76% or Odisha
Yeah.
has 3%? I think it was getting repetitive for me. So I want to like flip that for
Mm.
quite some time. And I think that is what makes it interesting. So that is there. And I'm also working on the data course for
Yeah.
people
Great.
to also learn data visualization from this approach, not like this data science heavy approach, but from
Yeah.
like artistic storytelling kind of approach. I think that is super important, because when I started, coding and everything seemed like so, oh, you need to know like C pointers and, all this. I think it's unnecessary.
Jargons. They're all jargons.
There's so many jargons, and I think someone should just remove it
Yeah.
and make it for what it is. Like it's so fun. And so I'm designing that course. I'm thinking like if I had to start today, how would I probably do it? And so a lot of thought process is going there. And yep, I'll probably announce it very soon whenever it's ready for people to join.
Personally, very excited for that course. Surely
Oh,
enroll. Yeah.
I cannot wait for you to join. I hope you will also enjoy it.
All the best. All the best for that course, sir.
Thanks, Share. Thank you.
All my questions are done, sir. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I do have questions for you. So I am also curious about, I'm sure like you might have talked in the
Yeah.
podcast before,
Yeah.
but at your age, I don't think I had any kind of, you know, like a direction to like what I should be doing or how should I be doing. And so I'm just curious, when like people from your age ask me, how should we go about doing things? I usually don't have something to reply, because I was very confused at your age. I probably didn't have that experience. So how do you think, what helped you come to this position where you have this bias for action? Most people would just dream of having a website, but you went ahead and built it, and you're pushing it every single day. So what mindset do you work from?
Yeah, I think I was in the mindset where you just dream, but don't act anything, right? But
Hmm.
then I realized like what tangible are you building? Like you
Hmm.
dreamt of it, but it didn't happen because you didn't act. So
Hmm.
you have to start right away. Like you shouldn't give any excuse to it. Like for some people say like
Hmm.
I will learn from tomorrow, right? And then they push it. Then at late night they will think कि अब क्या तो कल करते हैं तो
Right.
कल करते they will never learn. They will never learn. You have to throw everything away and start building it right away. Like even if you write any basic, like for example you just write hi on the website, and that is also a big achievement, right? Because you did it. You don't have to be like 100% consistent every day. You just have to be consistent every day. Like for example,
Hmm.
there are many days like I didn't code at all. but I just but I did code little bit, but it code a lot. But I
Right.
did code a little bit, right? That helped me put the consistency in the bar, and hence in 3 months I could build that website and put it online, right?
That's so great. I think so. What you're essentially doing is you're breaking down things to achievable goals. So
Uh-huh.
rather than seeing it as a daunting big
Correct,
project,
correct, correct,
you are
exactly.
breaking it down to small achievable
Yeah, I
goals.
think coding also helped me to break those things, right? For example, if there's a huge problem, you just break it down into 5 parts. You
Yeah.
achieve the first part, second part, third part, fourth part, and then fifth part, and you complete the project. Then
Hmm.
again, the next problem, etc., etc.
Beautiful. I think that is how I approached it also, and that is how I still do it. So even in my mind, when I do a visualization, it is breaking down a lot of
Correct.
stuff, right? There's a step one, how do I get that data? And once I do it, you tick off and you celebrate. And then your second step, how do you process it to a cleaner
Exactly.
form? And it's like all big things are essentially very small things done right. And
True.
will take so much of time to get to that point. And it's
True.
really great that you have this mindset right away. And I think that is something people could learn from. Tell me something that I'm usually curious about. Like at your age, you have to do so many things. You're also growing as a person, not just as a creator. How do you make that, I wouldn't say balance, but how do you ensure that you have a social life going, but at the same time focus on your products?
Yeah, social life means that like I spend 8 hours in the school only. That
Yeah.
is, I think, a good social skills, because you
Mm,
interact with a lot of people in school, right? And then they also tell about what they are doing in the life. Like for
yeah.
example, I have a friend who is like doing like 6 hours of just cricket, and he's playing for, I think, the Pune national team for cricket, right? I think
Mm.
that is pretty. You learn about their journeys, then you get inspired that he's doing something for 6 hours. I think I at least should do it for 2 hours, and then it inspires me.
Do your friends know about all the stuff that you're doing? Do they?
Yes. Yeah. So most of the friends don't understand what I'm doing at all. Like they
Mhm.
are like, "Kya kar rahe hai?" Then those who understand ask me about stock tips. Give me stock tips. Give me stock tips. कौन सा stock चल रहा है? Which stock is trending and all like that.
Well, that's a really good place to be, where like you are having like the roles that you should be doing, which is like going to school, having friends and everything, but at the same time also you're building something. So that's great. That is something uh, I did even in college. One is to focus on my acads, another is to like keep exploring different things. And then when I was doing a job also, that is essentially what I do. And I think on a meta level,
Yeah.
how it helps is you have one foot in order and one
Correct.
foot in chaos.
Yeah.
And so that allows you like that buffer, that even if you fail, you still have like something concrete to focus
Exactly.
on.
Exactly. It gives you security, right? For example.
Your security, exactly. But at the same time, you aren't crushed under the order, like
Yeah.
going to school every day, because you have something new that you're building
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah.
So I think it's about finding that balance of order and chaos. And uh, that I think is a really smart move.
Exactly. For example, if you have a thing in place that secures you and that clears your mind from that burden, you have to do it, you have to do it. And then
Yeah,
there is a space too for curiosity to do new things, right? And then that makes you build things.
great. I think I'm also done with the questions I had for you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Just for the purpose of the podcast, because I know I'm just really curious, how does your mind work at these times? I'm always fascinated by how young people think in today's times, because you're barely in class 10 and you have like the
Yeah, yeah.
whole thing ahead of you. So I'm sure like the way you approach things, being such a digital native right away as a young person, I'm really excited about your generation, about what cool things you will build. Sometimes I wish like that was there in our generation, but that's like every generation talks about it.
Not like my generation is pretty old, I think. Like for example, I'm in class 10, right? So I
Yeah,
talk to the my class fifth and sixth, like juniors, right? And then I see their projects. I'm gone mad because some are building apps, and their apps are actually live on Play Stores, and they actually have built something tangible in fifth and sixth. In fifth and sixth, I was just watching TV,
yeah.
Shinchan, Doraemon.
I think people don't realize how fast things move. You know,
Correct.
they underestimate how much things can happen in long run, and we overestimate how much things will happen in the short run. And that is one good thing about India, is when India picks up something, it does it really fast and it
Correct.
doesn't take time. Like probably it will not do it forever, but when it starts doing, things like this, like kids in class 5 doing like these kind of things, this was unheard of like 10 years back because we just didn't have the tools. And I think internet is such a liberating force for so many people, you
Because
know.
you have all things in place. Like if you want to learn UI, it's
Yeah,
there. You just have to search UI. UI, what you videos, tutorials. You can get 10 tutorials and you will, after finishing 10 tutorials, you have mastered a skill. I think that
exactly.
wasn't possible 10 years ago.
We are part of like a digitally connected world where you do not own 100% of your knowledge. It is
Exactly.
dependent on you sharing your knowledge, and that's how things grow. I learned so many things from the internet, and it's only fair and nice that now people are also getting connected and doing projects on their own. I think that is beautiful.
Exactly. Great, 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 great. Thanks for coming on the show, sir. It was pleasure hosting you.
It was really pleasure talking to you, Jay, and thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.